Okay, we'll get started now. So this is our agenda for tonight. Okay, we'll get started now. We'll just have a few announcements before we have our main presenter, Laura. Then we'll have a break, and Steve Wood, who I sure hope he arrives soon, well before, by the break anyway. He's got a follow-up to a couple of those brick walls that we were talking about at the last meeting. So it'll be interesting to see what he's found. So our meetings are open to the public, and I see a couple people here from my class, so welcome. Be interesting to see what he's found. And not to center you out, but everybody who's a visitor, if they could raise your hands, so welcome. Okay. And I'm going to ask you to stand, not to center you out, but we want to know what names you're researching, because you might be related to us. So, I'm going to start over here. Okay. Yeah. So say your name and then tell us the surnames you're researching. We want to know what names you're researching, because you might be related to us. Edith? Start over here. Okay. Hagen. So say your name and then tell us the surnames.
My name is Trent Tippins, and I'm researching the Tippins family and my uncle's family under the name of Pierce.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Please.
I'm Carol Hewitt, and I'm from Oshawa, of course, and I'm researching Jameson, Martin, who came to Oshawa in about 1850, Conants, who came to Oshawa in about 1780, and Weeks that were on Nassau Street for many years. They came from Youth England.
Very good. Conant is certainly a familiar name. You, sir?
My name's Ron Alge, and I'm trying to find the Perrys that lived in Bowmanville.
Very good. Okay, not the ones from Fort Perry.
No, from Bowmanville. Well, they may have moved there, but there wasn't that long ago, but they just disappeared in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
I can't
heard the statesman. One of them.
Okay, not the ones from Fort Perry.
No, from
No, the
Bowmanville.
Statesman was based out of Bowmanville. So there was a photographer there with the last name of Perry? Oh, very interesting. Maybe it'll fit into your family, maybe not. That's the joy of family history. Who else is, who have I missed? So there was a photographer there with the last name of
My family
Perry?
has researched on both sides, my father's side,
Maybe it'll fit into your
others,
family, maybe
and my
not.
son's
That's the joy
on
of
his
family
father's.
history. Who
But
else is,
the problem,
who have
my
I missed?
last name, Ferguson, I'm Janet Ferguson. In the late 1800s, this actor came to town and met up with my husband's his grandmother, who lived, or whose father, Mr. Wilson, of Wilson Road, owned the music theater, acting theater downtown. Mr. Ferguson, I'm not sure of his first name, my son would know, came from the States. Now the story the family told, whether it's true or not, is before my husband's father, the only child, was born, supposedly they were married, and supposedly he fell off a horse and died. But my husband's son cannot find Mr. Ferguson, but I have 5 kids and 12 grandchildren. They're boys. And the Ferguson name, it would be nice if we really found out who he was and where he came from, but he wasn't active in the streets.
So Mr. Ferguson, who was an actor, and he,
Performed in the theater.
yes, and married Miss Wilson.
Yes, married Miss Wilson.
Miss Wilson, the daughter of the theater owner.
Yes, John.
Okay.
Who came here?
That is a wonderful family story, I'm sure. Okay. And just at the back there, Miss Wilson.
And my name is Louise Mackel. I'm from Oshawa. I raised my grandfather after the grocery store.
Last name of Marco still?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
But that's no longer there. But apparently he owned a grocery store they immigrated from Czechoslovakia. And I think they had a grocery store in Montreal or Quebec. But we have a picture, but we don't know an address. We don't know whether it was Montreal or not. And we're trying to find that part before they actually came to Oshawa.
Well, I can tell you, I grew up with a Sharon Macco. Lived in Windsor, and her parents were Czech.
Yeah, it's not any, let's see.
And he said the last name would have been pronounced Machko.
But that's not any really.
You've got
there
no-
are some Macos.
Yeah, okay, so is it like Smith here?
And there is a Sharon Macco. She was married to my brother.
And he said the last name would.
A lot of Macos.
It is a small world, so
Yeah.
Mako seems to be a popular name from Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Okay. That might be related back further than could be. Well, thank you, everybody. And don't forget to sign. We have a list at the back after I match people with previous Czechoslovakia announce their names. Might be related back further. Sign that list, we'd appreciate it. Well, thank you, everybody. Well, I had an email from the Court Branch. They are planning now for their annual bus trip to the Ontario Archives that is on the York University campus, which if you ever tried to park there, you know it's a nightmare. So the bus trip is a great idea if you have any intention of doing research at the Ontario Archives. So, they're planning for April 20th. They want to know people's interest. They've asked that people send a request to their program person, coordinate the program at ogs.on.ca. The cost will be $35. They have several pickup spots, including one here in Oshawa. Conference is advising everybody that their pre-conference activities, such as research trips, are filling up fast. So if you have any intention of doing any of the pre-conference workshops or trips, get signing up soon. Conference is advising everybody that their pre-conference. And on another note, provincial office has announced that they are looking for nominations for president, vice president, and 3 directors at large, if you have an interest in that. Deadline is February 26th. And on another note, provincial office. Okay, now, OGS itself is moving to a new address sometime in the next several months. We don't have the address yet. But in addition to that, their library, the collection of OGS Provincial, is being kicked out of the North York Central Library. So after doing a tour and deciding all the different tasks that would have to be done to deal with the OGS library collection, and it is going to go down along with everything else in the Canadian Library. It's going down to the Toronto Reference Library at Durham. Unfortunately, the space is fairly small. So they're going to have to do some very drastic culling of the OGS collection and giving away things to the branches and to libraries. So they've decided it's too much for one volunteer to handle, so they're actually advertising for a contract for someone with library experience. So there is a job offer on the board here for librarians who would like to cull an incredible collection. Contract for someone with library experience. Now, someone on the OGS board has been very active. They've gone and gotten us discounts at Tiger Direct. And it's a member benefit, so if you're a member of OGS, There is a contact name here, and this was in the, just in the last e-weekly bulletin that came out on Sunday. So it will be easy to find on the OGS website. There isn't a specific percentage, but apparently if we contact this person at Tiger Direct, we'll get the best offer that they can give. So it will be easy to find on the Now, everybody who knows me knows that I'm absolutely positively in love with webinars. I think it's got to be one of the best ways to educate yourself in genealogy. And you can do it at home, in your pajamas, if you really feel that way. So the OGS webinars are open to the public. You won't get the handout, and you only can watch them live in your pajamas. First Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock. So the one coming up in 2 days is a British genealogist, and first topic is A to Z of family history, an alphabetical journey through some less well-known sources for British family history. Now, OGS has just purchased the GoToWebinar software, so you do have to register. You can't just click on a link and you're there. You have to register, and they will send you instructions on the specific link that you will need to use for the GoToWebinar software. And speaking of webinars, I love watching these ones. It's the Southern California Genealogical Society, and they get some really intriguing speakers. And again, you can watch it live. You don't have to be a member. You just don't get the handout. Actually, I think you do get the handout. Not sure on that one. But you have to watch it live. After that, it goes behind the membership wall, and you have to be a member to re-watch any of their webinars. So this one's going to be on scanning and photo retouching for beginners, and that's what they mean, absolute rank beginners. So they're going to spend a lot of time on what's dots per inch and megapixels and the really basic stuff that you need to know. So this one's going to be on scanning. That's going to be 10 a.m. PST, so add 3 hours for EST. Spend a lot of time on what's dots per inch. So I thought, well, let's see what other webinars there are out there. Well, Family Search actually has several interesting webinars this coming month, particularly 3 on British resources. So I thought, well, at Family Search, at Ancestry, and at Find My Past, how to find British sources, or do British research on those 3 websites. I think that'll be really good. Little tricky to find out where to get the link to watch the webinar. And at the very end, I can show a few slides if people are interested. Just catch me at the end. Legacy Family Tree also allows you to watch for free. Their deal is that you watch for free, and then actually they allow it to still be free. Usually it's shown on a Wednesday and it's still free up to the following Tuesday. So even if you miss it, you can still see it. The handout, though, is a member benefit for free, and then actually they allow it to still be free. Now, usually it's shown on. There is the biggest genealogy conference in the world, starting tomorrow in Salt Lake City, and it's hosted by the Family Search organization. And they have quite a wide variety of speakers. Well, they have announced their streaming sessions. So one session in each time slot is going to be streamed around the world for free. So go on their website, rootstech.org, and look at the streaming schedule. Again, this is Mountain Standard Time, so you have to add 2 hours to the time of the lecture. See, I think they're so wonderful because people can watch lectures from around the world. It's so neat.
Look at my streaming schedule. Again,
Now,
this is months.
who has Family Tree Maker? I know I asked this last time, and we all know that it's going to lose its support at the end of 2016, and they're no longer selling it. So, Toronto branch has actually put on, they're putting on a special extra session before their regular meeting. That's on Monday, February 22nd at 6:45. Their speaker for the night is going to talk about life after family tree. They meet in the, well, it's called the North York Memorial Hall. But really is the basement underneath the library, so it's the North York Civic Center. They meet where the North York Central Library is, but it's down in the basement. It's called then they're going to have the regular meeting, and the speaker is going to talk about using family social history to flesh out your ancestors. North York Civic Center. And Toronto branch is also hosting the Ulster Historical Foundation North American Tour 2016. Then they're going to have the regular meeting, talking about Irish and Scots-Irish roots, and that's March 5th, so that's not too far away, guys. It's about 4 weeks. And Toronto branch is also hosting the Ulster Historical. But the reason I'm talking about it tonight is there is an early bird. Talking about Irish and Scots-Irish. So the early bird deadline is February 5th. So if you want to get in on the early bird price, you have to register soon. So TorontoFamilyHistory.org, that's the Toronto branch. But the reason I'm talking about it tonight is there is an early bird. Just a heads up, April 1 to 2, Ottawa branch is going to host their 32nd Geneorama. So it's like a mini conference. It's a Friday night and Saturday. And it's always they've got about 8 really good speakers for that. Just a heads up, April. And I think I got through all the announcements. I do have some printouts here that I will leave up front that you can look at in the break.
There is one announcement. Andy has a table over there with books, and he just wants a donation.
Okay, Andy?
The single table.
Over at the back, on that side, Andy Brown has brought in a bunch of books, and all he's asking is for a donation.
There is one announcement. Andy has a table over there with books, and he just wants a
Yes.
There was an announcement online just today about family tree
over at the back,
from the dead.
on that side. Oh, now isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it says here that since our family tree maker announcement last December, we have continued to actively explore ways to develop and support family tree maker and ensure your choices ways that matter to you. Today, I'm pleased to announce 2 options for desktop software that go with Ancestry and it was on.
Okay, so that almost sounds like they're going to allow the syncing between Ancestry online tree that you built and a program. Did they announce which programs?
This came from Thomas and
Okay. Okay, so
there's another one.
that almost sounds like they're going to allow the syncing. Okay, between Ancestry online tree that you built and a program. Did they announce which programs? Are they actually going to keep the real family tree maker, or are they actually going to work so that a different program will work with their site? That's what we need to know.
What I read is the company that
They announce which programs?
published family tree.
Are they actually going to keep the real family tree maker, or are they actually going to work so that a different program will work? So maybe at the break, I'll try and see if I've gotten that notice from Thomas McKenty, and we'll put it out for people to see, okay? So at this point in time, it's time for our main presentation. Joyce, can you introduce our speaker, please? So maybe at the break, I'll try and see if I've gotten that notice from
Well, I think it pretty well says it right there. Laura is from the library
So at
and
this
she's
point in time,
all about time.
Time for our main presentation.
Great, thank you. I have lost my arrow.
You can see it.
It's not shown on mine.
I thought it was a fly at first.
See, all I'm getting is advancing on me.
Well, can you press escape or something?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, Ann, thank you. It's not shown on mine.
I thought it was a fly at first.
See, all I'm getting is the advancing type of slideshow or just the regular.
Press escape or something?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, Ann, thank you. It's not shown.
Great, thank you. Fancy, we don't have fancy.
See, all I'm getting is
Okay, so hi, my name is Laura McEwen, and I am the local history and genealogy librarian. It says everywhere. So a little bit about myself. I have an undergrad from Trent University in English Lit with a minor in history. And I graduated actually just this past April from Western University with my MLIS, which is what you need to be a librarian. So I am what I like to call a baby librarian. So I'm fresh in the field and it's wonderful. I worked at the library here as a clerk for about 5 years. So once I finished my master's degree, the contract for the genealogy and local history librarian came up and I just sort of fell into it. And I definitely had my reservations in the beginning. I am an Oshawa girl, but I know next to nothing. But I found myself really enthralled with the topic, and I get to meet like-minded people such as yourselves, and I love history, so it's been a wonderful experience. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the services we offer, and then we're going to have a look at some of the genealogical specific things that we offer as I go through the presentation. The one thing I'm not going to cover is ancestry.ca. I feel like everyone, especially here, knows what it can do for you. So I will just go and remind you that if you don't have a personal subscription, you can access ancestry.ca for free at any time in any of the Oshawa branches. So the local history collection and its purpose is, and services and the outreach, is to help foster greater public awareness of the city's culture and the traditions. So when people work on their own ancestry and build their own family trees, sometimes they come back with resources for me, or be it they found something, or they can help me directly a customer that has inquiries. So it's a small but mighty collection. So the primary focus is on, sometimes they come back with resources for me, or if they found something. Yeah, so the main initiative of the local history collection is to collect, preserve, maintain, and make public, make available to the public for research and personal interests. So the scope of the local history collection, the main focus is historical information about the city of Oshawa. So the main goal for us is to collect information, and then if genealogical information happens to fall under that scope or be in those resources as well, then that's an added bonus. The materials by and about, so we get materials that are by and about people from Oshawa. And we have over 2,900 photographs that we've actually drawn, because right now I have a grant student here that has been scanning, and we're up to about a little over 3,500 pictures now online that you can access. So the local history collection includes photographs, books, e-texts, pamphlets, correspondence, letters, diaries, memos, maps, scrapbooks, microfilm and microfiche, and various other media. So here's a little screenshot of how you navigate on the website to the genealogy and local history section. So for anyone who wants to access any kind of information in Oshawa, you can access some things through the website, which is helpful, especially for long distance researchers, but then a lot of the original archival quality items are hard copy and see them in person. And often I've been reading some of our resources and donating to the Oshawa Museum, because they have the resources to correctly preserve the items so they're not sitting in our basement, not non-quality things. So it's a great partnership. So, the first resource we're going to talk about is full text archive. So the Oshawa Public Library has a good online collection of scanned local history books and pamphlets spanning the past century and have to benefit people researching their personal history as well as the heritage of Oshawa. So the one resource that I will talk about right now that I think about 6 copies of the book scanned is Vernon's Directory. And I know someone was saying they already have a street name narrowed down for a relative on Nassau Street. So what's great about Vernon's Directory is that they used to go around door to door, knock and say, who lives here? Do you have a phone line? Do you own this house? And that would all be recorded. So we have from about 1921 until 2002. So you can look up by the street name, the address, and you can see who was the resident that lived there. Or you can look up by the last name and see which street that they have registered as living at. So I have a friend who lives in a house on Nassau, and we did all this sort of backtracking to see who had lived there, and she ended up finding that a World War II vet lived there. And some unsavory things happened there as well that made it into the newspaper. So you never know what you're going to find. If you're not comfortable with finding bad news, you know, tread lightly because you never know what you're going to find. But the Vernon's Directory is a great resource for that. So like I said, we have about 6 or 7 copies uploaded, and then the rest are available upstairs. So that's one of the projects we're looking to get funding for in addition to the Friends of the Library to scan the whole collection and then have them pulled off the shelf. Because especially the ones from the 1920s and 30s and 40s, they're pretty rough shape, and so the older they get, the more frail they get, and you don't want to risk the integrity of losing the resource altogether. So that's one of the projects we're looking to get funding for in addition to the Friends of the Library. So here are some more examples of some of the texts that I've uploaded and been online, including pamphlets. One of my personal favorites is the one that says the Manchester of Canada, Oshawa Illustrated. So I like that that was Oshawa's nickname at first. And so you can find bylaws, all kinds of community items, some maps and different things like that. We haven't scanned everything, so there are more resources available here in the library, but if you kind of want to get a beginning look at what we have, this is a great place to start. For people who are looking for family members that own businesses, there's also a section with full text archive items about businesses in the area, historical businesses. We haven't scanned everything. So probably my most regularly requested resource is the online newspaper and obituary index. Some of you might have emailed me yourself asking for copies of them. So I receive anywhere from 35 to 40 email requests. That's not including the walk-ins and the phone calls asking for copies of obituaries and notices from our Oshawa newspapers. So unfortunately, we don't have our newspapers uploaded online. We need the copyrights to have that. We do not have that. It's owned by a company now. So what I do is I get the information that people are looking for. We have an online index. So you search the name of the individual you're looking for or the surname, and then anything related will come up. And then you contact me with that information, and I go up to the microfilm, scroll through the paper, scan it, email it back to you. So then you have a copy of the notice for your records. So this is a great resource. We had a lot of gaps in our collection at first and a lot of data entry errors. This index is database, it's the Heritage Oshawa. So it just, with a lot of data entry fatigue happened. So what we did this year, I did since I took over, was I have another 2 more students, on top of us, 3 now, I also have a grad student, who they went through issue by issue of the newspaper for the whole decade of the 60s and filled in any gaps. So filling in that information has really seen a spike in the request for the notices because now people are finding, oh, this information exists in this newspaper, but they didn't really initially know that because there wasn't an indexed item on there. So now they're working on the 70s, and then I think we're going to have them backtrack and go to the 50s. So we're getting a pretty robust index. So I really encourage you, if you have any Oshawa relatives, to have a look on there, just do a little search, see what comes up. You never know if you're going to find newspaper articles or obituaries or anything like that.
Where is that big hole in time? Wasn't there a fire? Did the Oshawa-
Yes, so it's 1942 to 44-ish. So there was a fire in the 70s, I believe, at the Oshawa Times. And so they lost all their archival materials of the war years. So there are no archival microfilm copies of the war years of the Oshawa, which is a huge loss. It's a massive loss. So what we do have in lieu of that is we have a couple of scrapbooks that some women made who were and they compiled these scrapbooks of newspaper articles from the papers that related to anything to do with any of our Oshawa or surrounding area soldiers. So those are helpful, and it's a big loss to the collection for sure. And I've been doing a placement at the Canadian Auto Museum, a partnership with them, and I actually found 7 copies of wartime papers. Still in readable condition, they're amazing, and I'm going to get them scanned and then put into protective things right away. So it's a gap, like it's still like one's from 42, one's from 44, and there's a couple from 43, but they're really interesting Snapchats, and they're papers no one had ever seen before since the fire in the 70s. So there is a big gap, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. In lieu of that, there are, like we have a memory book website and everything that you can access that with some of the soldiers that from this area. But they're really interesting. So like I was talking about, we also have a photograph collection. So again, if you're interested to find pictures of streets where maybe relatives live, pictures of businesses, different things like that, we do have that in our photo image collection, and so that's all accessible online actually. Most of the pictures have been scanned and uploaded. With this project with my grant student, I had her rejig everything so they're more effectively searchable and so that the subject terms work better than they were before, because it would be something like, it would be a picture of a car from GM and the subject term would be airplane or something really ridiculous like that, right? So my student went through the whole collection, which was again almost 3,000 pictures, and changed the metadata on every single one. So it was a tedious task, but it makes searching for you guys and for myself significantly easier, so it's great. Those pictures are free for anyone to access. You can, print them off, so scrapbooks if you want. The only time you need permission to do anything with them is if you'd like to publish them in a public area, and you have to contact myself. But it's public domain though, you just search it, give me okay. Yeah, so, and what else is nice is we have some families who have donated complete collections of their family photos. So they just didn't know what to do with them. So they just donated them to the library. So we've scanned them and uploaded them. And while some of them will have people that are maybe completely irrelevant to most of us, it's the things in the background that are the most interesting, because you'll say, oh, they're on that street or King Street. I don't know who they are, but like, look what that building looks like there, or whatever like that. So it's a great resource. So this is just an example of what it looks like when you go on online and search. So here's a picture of the Oshawa Hospital. It's the things in the back, the YMCA buildings, the armories, and some information about them as well. So this is kind of a sample of what you'll see when you go on there and search. So there's just an example of what it looks like when you go on online and search. Actually, that's a drawing. Now that I look at it, there's a picture of the Oshawa Hospital. It's the things in the back. Then Oshawa Post Office. There's an early 1900s bird's eye view of Oshawa. This is kind of a street looking east. That's a good one. That's also a drawing. And then the new Anglican Church on Center Street, Oshawa. So there's just a new thing. That's a drawing. This is one of my favorite pictures. I love this one. This one's really cool. Then Oshawa Post Office. Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah. View of Oshawa. Okay, so the local history and genealogy services are, but not limited to, assisting library researchers doing genealogy work, local history work, scanning articles and notices like I talked about, and providing assistance with the databases. So though I just did a quick overview of what the databases are, sometimes navigating can be difficult, so you can always set up an appointment with myself and we can sit down and go through some of the resources and I can show you some of the tricks of the trade for searching it. Assisting library researchers doing genealogy work, This is, I'm just taking some of the best correspondence that my colleagues at the position I'm in right now that she's had, which just gives you a nice sample of kind of the different range of questions that we get. So this one's here from, I believe, a Durham college student wanting pictures for the Williams Piano Factory. This is, I'm just taking some of the best correspondence that so sometimes you have to say, no, I can't have it. Which in this scenario is trying to find resources on the whole family. And then I often just refer them to something that's online if I can. If it's something that's a hard copy, then they come in and set up an appointment and we have a look at it. So we get a lot of research questions from UOIT and Durham college students. So sometimes you have to say. This one is from a customer who wanted to get a hold of a reel from a Nova Scotia newspaper. So we do interlibrary loan. So if you want a particular census that we don't have, we can interlibrary loan it from the Canadian Library and Archives. And have it brought here, and then you can use the microfilm reel in person here. So often people think, oh, the reel is in Ottawa and I can't have access to it because it's not online. Don't know until you ask. So that's always how I try it. I always pretty much ask them. The worst thing they can say is no. So we often have people have reels interlibrary loaned into our system from another library, and then you can view it in-house, scan, print, do whatever you want, and then we send it back to the library. So in this scenario, they ended up sending a microfilm for the Herald from Halifax. So this is a good one. This is a hilarious exchange between Eva and a Polish gentleman. She does not speak Polish, so she had to use a Google translator to understand what he was saying. So she ended up corresponding with him the best she could between Polish and English. And he ended up finding out that he had relatives that belonged to one of the Polish churches here. This is a good one. And was in the military, so he was looking for some information from that. So, I think a lot of people are surprised. I think they think I just sort of maybe talked to someone in Ontario, but I'm talking States, in Europe, all over the place. So it's a fun, you never know who you're going to get an email from. He ended up finding genealogists everywhere that belong to Polish churches here. Yeah, St. Hedwig's Parish is where he ended up finding relatives that that was looking for, and then he ended up getting in touch with a relative and talking to him on the phone and everything. So it was a really cool exchange. States, in Europe, all over the place. And this one is kind of harkens back to what I was saying, that we do have, the images are public domain. So in this scenario, this is the TD Bank asking to have one of our photos a high resolution, which is an archive quality, which is a massive file. If they could have a copy of it, to then blow it up to 10 by 10 feet and hang it on their wall. Yeah, so it was huge. And so then you have to go into the whole, it's the thing about quality, because a scan isn't a great quality of an item. When you want to blow something up that big, it needs to be the original. And I've had that question a couple times too. I recently had a lawyer's office in the area. They sent me a picture of, it was GM celebrating, I think, the 100. So then you have to go into the whole, it's the thing about quality, a car off the line or something like that they wanted to print a copy of, but we don't have the original for it anymore. We only have a scanned version. So like I said, you are free to use images with credit to the Oshawa Public Library. GM celebrating, I think, the 100. And then this is just Eva referring her to the Oshawa Archives and Museum. And I often do refer people to the Oshawa Archives and Museum down at the lake. You'll be surprised about the amount of resources they have there. Like I said, you are full TV there all the time, but it's a great resource as well. In this scenario, this customer is asking for emails about that took place in 1972. And so they just have sort of this arbitrary information, sort of some brief things that we could look into. And we did in fact end up finding the article about the crime as well as the death notice. So this is this customer is the things we get people to ask. It's just crazy sometimes. I had someone recently who had a sibling who passed away in 1977 in a car accident with 3 of his friends, and that's been quite a time now, and he said he's just sort of addressing it now. So he wanted copies of the obituaries of everyone that had passed away, every article I could find, just to sort of, I guess, rehash it and work out. He said he had some things to work out. So it's almost like I'm a therapist sometimes too, as well as being a detective. So yeah. It's been quite a time now. And this is a second-year journalism student from Durham College wanting to know about the genealogy. Yes, I get a lot of questions about the genealogy. Yeah, in Oshawa Hospital. So that's what that is, and that sometimes too about how much broken information there actually is about that site. You know, you kind of get something that'll say something about the building, and then something that'll completely contradict it. It's still a very mysterious building to me to this day. I was born in '87, so I've never seen it be anything other than a closed building on a corner. So, right, like I have no clue. Yeah, like it sounds like it has a wonderful history. Some of it seems dodgy as well, but I only know it to be a closed building. But I'd like to see what it's going to become, and it's still definitely an area of interest for a lot of people. They're very curious about it. I was born in '87, so I've never seen it be anything other than a closed building on a corner. So is it being renovated then? Yeah, like it sounds like it has a wonderful history. Some of it seems dodgy as well, but I only know it to be a closed building. But yeah, I'd like to see what it. Yeah, it's cool. It's great to see. It's like with the Regent Theater. Like I'd rather see it turned into something that still contributes to the community rather than, you know, bulldozed down and all that history is lost, right? So that's great to see that. So is it being this actually, someone had a question, someone was talking about family businesses in the area, right? So this is a scenario where this person, their family member owned a diner in Oshawa that has now disappeared. So they were contacting Emma to get some information about any pictures, any articles or references to it. And as far as I know, she couldn't find anything. So again, there's one like these ghost buildings that people talk about in businesses that they're like, I know I saw this in 1974 and I don't know where it is now. And so again, it's detective work, right? And then this is an obituary for about a child dying in a house fire. So there's that. That's what most of my requests are: obituary and death requests, some marriage, and some removal or engagement. And then again, more obituary. So I will touch on just one other resource for you guys. I talked about ancestry, and you guys are all, it sounds like, very well versed in family search. That's a good one. And the other thing that you can do is have census here. Though most of the census are uploaded online now, so you should be okay with that. But we do have hard copies of census here, as well as plots of lands that when the divisions used to be different from how they are now. So a lot of people can find land properties connected to their relatives, which is a resource a lot of people don't use. And the other thing is store maps that you could do that with. So that's how the census here. Yeah.
So are the plots from like the historical atlas, or are you talking more
copies of census here, as well as plots?
municipal?
Yeah, so they're municipal records, and I think the earliest one I've seen was 1892, I want to say, so quite old. And the map is a photocopy though, so who knows where the original map is, I have no clue. But yeah, so a lot of people, and you can gauge a lot of interesting information for land, like lots from those maps, because sometimes they put more information than you would expect them into something like that, so that's great. And it's especially so for obituaries too. I find when I read, an obituary, if I pull one from, 2010, the information it gives now as compared to what it was in the 60s, where it would literally give the residence that someone lived at, which is just priceless information that I think at the time, they're not thinking of it obviously, but looking back on it, then you can take that information and cross-reference it with Vernon's directory and find out all kinds of different things. So for obituaries too, I find. And I do have just a couple of things to tell you about. So on February 12th, we're starting our first genealogy support group. And so this is an idea born out of we have those customers who are regulars here who had both kind of hit a plateau with their research, and they were really stumped about what they were trying to look for, and they had different contacts that weren't working out. So they were both standing there, one came up and asked me a question, and the other one came up, and then they got to talking to each other and realized that they were distinct cousins. Yeah. So, and they said it'd be great, you know, if we could get together with other people that do this kind of research and just talk about, like, you know, networking, any connections that people have, any methods of research that they can do. So starting on February 12th, that's going to be a monthly thing. It's 2 o'clock here at the main branch. And so I'll just briefly sort of go over, you know, genealogy 101, just for anyone that's starting out in the group. But it's going to be mostly a self-driven group where you guys can get together and talk about genealogy stuff. You can get laptops, you can go over our resources, so we have that. And then April 23rd is our annual Heritage Showcase. And this year the theme is the automotive industry in Durham region. Now I picked that theme because I've been working at the Auto Museum just across the way. And the amount of interesting things, especially related to Oshawa history from the auto industry, is wonderful. So I thought that would be a great theme to really look into. And I know the Regiment Museum has actually offered to bring a truck that was built here in Oshawa during his years. So, does anyone have any questions at the Auto Museum?
I know several years ago, from your website, you could access the Toronto Daily Star.
Yes.
Is that still available?
That is something we are going to look into. I'm sure you noticed I did bring that up because that's such a big one. We do not have, they decided not to continue the subscription to that, mainly because we only had 33 uses in 2015.
I know several years ago.
So that is, for a database, it's about $8,000 a year. 33 clicks is not very much. So it's a big loss for sure, especially for you guys and for me as the genealogy librarian. However, they do still offer it at Whitman Public Library. We do not have, we do have it on microfilm up to a point. But what was great about the one online was it was hosted by ProQuest, and you could do a keyword search in it, which made your life so much easier than scrolling through pages. So it's a big loss for sure. We do, I think it was February, I think it's actually today that the subscription ends. However, they do still offer it at the yes.
Okay,
Yeah, microfilm.
and no hard market.
But what was great about
Is there any
one online was it was
They have any kind of free.
They should. Yeah, that was a common practice. I don't know to what extent, you know, up until when that they have that, but you would just contact Hamilton Public Libraries, and you could even give them a link to our Durham directory and said, do you have anything similar to this? They should. Like most cities, especially when they were up and coming, had a directory like that because it also included businesses. So it was sort of like the pseudo phone book, and before there was a phone. So yeah, they should have things like that there as well. I would imagine so, but you never know until you ask, right?
I just want to add to that. I think we might have a couple of editions of birds for Hamilton at the office. I can't quite remember, but we might. So if you want to email the branch,
had a directory like that because it
no,
also
our genealogical up by the airport. And we may have a couple of Hamilton issues there. We've got quite a few. We've got a good selection in Toronto.
I would imagine so.
And some of Oshawa. And quite a few others. And in London, we've got a few collection too. And I can't quite remember Hamilton, but we might have one at the office. But if you want to email the branch, we'll get back to that. But you know.
I was looking at the directories the one we had the last meeting up there, and I was pretty, I wasn't going to say anything, but I was going to privately say it to you. And I think I remember seeing Hamilton there.
Yeah, I can't quite remember, but
Yeah.
So what is the email then? You didn't tell us that. You said you could email, we don't know the email.
Durham,
That was one.
Durham at ogs.on.ca.
Durham.ogs.
Durham at,
Durham at?
Durham at,
Oh, Durham at. Okay, at ogs.on.ca. Okay,
I have a
thank you.
slide near the end with their contact information that I can leave up for you.
And I would look online too to see if London or Halifax have already scanned and uploaded those directories online, because you may not even need to communicate with a staff member if you don't want to. Like you can probably find it online yourself and then do a keyword search to find it.
I know that some of the Toronto Library website, I've seen directories on there that are scanning they're just reviewed.
But like,
So I'm gonna try the Hamilton Library
yeah,
website.
they have a pretty robust budget too. That's all you need to digitize your resources is more money, right? So
Lots of money.
whatever libraries have more money, they have the better stuff is usually how it goes, so, yeah.
When you were talking about the index that got good going over.
The newspaper one? Yeah.
Newspaper one. To what extent do you, does the index have keywords as well as names?
Yes.
Just names?
Yes, it depends, like if it's, it's keywords for newspaper articles, which the newspaper articles have just been, indexed like of the last 10 years. So anything predating that, they're there, but they're not keyword searchable. So last names are the way to go, and almost always, and like try variations of your last name too, right? So it's the same thing that you do when you search any kind of genealogy thing. Search the way that you think you spell it, and then maybe search it the way other people may accidentally spell it, because just how it could be a typo in the newspaper, it could, like I said, it could be data entry fatigue on our end. So definitely don't assume right away it's not there, but yeah, it's still a work in process.
So when you index the surnames, every surname in the newspaper, or did you just do obituaries like birth, marriage, death?
Yes, yeah. So the plan is to then go back and start doing the articles. The BMID is what we call it, the most sought after information. So that seemed like the most pertinent to get indexed and put up online. And then I'd like to go back and do different things like, about that shooting that happened. Like if those last names were indexed, then they could have done a search and found that article as well. And it'd be great if we could get the copyright for the paper and then have it actually uploaded online, and then you guys can just search the whole thing. So the most sought after information. So that seemed like the most pertinent to get indexed and put up online.
The company went
then
out
I'd
of business
like
and
to
they
go back and do
donated
different things
the
like,
newspaper.
about that shooting that happened, like if those last names were indexed. Fingers crossed.
Microfilm opinion.
Yes.
It'd be great if we could get the copyright
Contributed to
paper and then have it actually. Oh, nice, yeah, because it's an expensive process, yeah.
And not only that, Ann and Dan actually went and ironed newspapers. And
Wow.
spread them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing, like.
Tape the loose bit back together so they can.
Yes, like with the newspapers, when we get the microfilm now, they cut them up into pieces and scan them, right? And it's fine, because it's a newspaper from like last month, so whatever.
Yeah.
But, well, we have the ones for like the war years, it's a more expensive process because they have to scan it in a special machine that's not gonna impact the integrity of the newspaper. And like, I don't even know how they're intact the way they are. They were just found in a suitcase. So someone had donated things that they thought were all full of automotive things, and then in the bottom of this suitcase was these wartime papers, and it made that like 6-month placement at the Auto Museum worth it just with those 7 papers, because I knew it was just priceless, right? Scan it in a special machine.
When Dan and I were scanning down at Preston Microfilm, there were newspapers there that had been microfilmed, and the people that asked them to do the microfilm did not want them back and just said throw them away. And they had to cut the spines in order to flatten them. But they were just going to be thrown out because they didn't have any space to store them. And these were like 80-year-old newspapers. There were newspapers there. So not everyone thinks they're valuable.
I know.
Well, at least they'd be microfilm.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And now they're being digitized.
Yeah.
And it's a better picture.
Yes, it's a higher quality,
They
yeah.
had to cut the spines.
Yep.
When we started looking up, okay, for me, what I family thing was probably exactly the same as what the name is now. But in the European countries, like our family from Czechoslovakia,
That's right.
we knew what my grandfather's name was in Slovak. But when we started looking it up, it didn't appear anywhere until we discovered that Slovakia, or Czechoslovakia, was under Hungarian all their documents. So they changed people's names to Hungarian spelling. And we thought, well, we can't find anything until we started matching up the dates and going, oh my gosh, all the documents are in Hungarian. So
it's tricky. Yeah, it's definitely tricky. That's why I say, like, sometimes it's detective work. And sometimes it's as simple as there's been a ship ledger where this person's name was spelled this way, and then it got written onto the ledger this way, and then from here on out, we are now, like, my last name's MCEWAN. Usually you see it MACEWEN or whatever, so at some point, someone's changed it or written it down different, and they've just gone with it, so.
When you're looking at
That's tricky.
manifest.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. That's why I say, like,
Those people
sometimes it's
didn't
detective.
speak English.
No, it's as simple as there's been a ship ledger, this person's name was spelled this way, and then it got written onto the ledger this way, and then from here on out, we're now, like, my last name's
My dad listed
MCEWAN.
as being.
Usually you see it MACEWEN or whatever, so at some point, someone's changed it.
Or maybe it was easier to use a ditto mark.
That's exactly what they did, or they didn't know the fellow that I was married to. They didn't know how to spell Kaddish. They called him Edward.
But it's interesting how often literacy plays into that too, because even, someone, many people couldn't read, right? So when they ask, whether he's born, I'm not sure. So then sometimes you'll see different date of birth in different areas. How do you spell your last name? Well, I'm not too sure. Like, what do you do for a living? And sometimes it'll say carpenter. Somewhere else it'll say blacksmith. It's like so you never know. So that's why it's always important to try different variations of things and to not have that mindset of like, okay, I already know what the profile of this person is. I've gotten it figured out from this one piece of information, because it could be completely false, right? And then you really have to dig through it, compare things, and I think open-mindedness is an important, like, what do you do genealogy? Sometimes be open carpenter. Exactly, yeah. So you never know. So that's why, yes, exactly. And to not have that
sometimes there's actual deceit.
Yes.
I can remember Steve giving a talk about Scottish research and the clans who were fighting. And if you belong to the certain clan, you might change your name or get killed.
It was common to lie about your age, what your work was, what your income was, how much money you actually had on you at the time.
Sometimes there's actual deceit.
Yes.
I can remember Steve giving a talk about Scottish research and the clans who were fighting. And if you belong to the certain clan, you might change your name or get killed.
It's common to lie about your age, what your work was, what your income was, how much money you actually had on you at the time.
So when I would dig in some more, I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is great, because my mother's name is right there, but it's showing up. It's been transcribed, it's coming, the ship's coming from Japan, and it came from Canada to the
See?
So, I mean, I detoured the article 4 times, this is right, it's my birthday.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense, right? Yeah.
Now, the only other thing I can think of is unless the ship home port was Japan.
Maybe, or the person just wasn't
But
listening.
it certainly throws you off.
Yeah.
The pictorial Oshawa books by Thomas. Boosie?
Yeah.
Did I say his name right? Boosie or Boosie?
Bokley.
Bokley. How do you say it?
Bokley.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense, right? Yeah.
3 plus a reissue, and the new one, so 4.
Yeah. And I think the first volume's scanned and uploaded online. All 3 have them, actually, yeah. I know the first volume is, yeah. So we have that collection as well. Some of it, it's been shared across the museum and the art gallery. Bokley.
Mostly I was just trying to figure out how to pronounce his name.
I've heard Bokley. I think it depends on the day. Yeah. I got
my cousins are Bokleys.
Bokleys, there you go.
If you're on vintage Oshawa or Oshawa Heritage
We have that.
Facebook group. Ron Goldberg on there is his nephew, friend of mine. He says definitely Goldberg.
Yeah. And like for any of the photos under our Heritage Image Index that are from that collection, they've been credited with it too. So you actually can go in and do a search under his name and find any of the pictures that were taken by him that we have in our collection.
Oshawa Heritage. One correction there. A lot of his pictures, it's often said that he took the pictures.
I know, yeah.
A lot of them were not taken.
Yeah, because he was a collector, but
Yes.
we give him credit.
Yeah.
He saved them.
Yeah, exactly. For any
Sorry, I was
photos
gonna
under
say just having cotton that visited Joshua.
Yeah.
I'm not
So you
actually
actually go in and do search.
Yeah.
But
But there was something about a blue wave photo, which was Bernie's camera.
Yes.
Well, everybody thinks that Bernie started the blue wave photo.
I know, yeah. Yeah, because he was a collector, but we give him credit.
Then Essie was so
Yeah,
behind.
exactly.
Then he sold it to Bernie, but nobody remembered where the original store.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bernie was buried in my cousin.
Well, I didn't talk to you because it was Bernie that started.
Glovsky, Bernie Glovsky, right?
Isn't that?
Yeah, because he was a collector, but.
As soon as you say Mothersville, there's an excellent book in Longman called Picture the Way We Were. Mothersville is involved in that. Sam Adams and there was 3 or 4 people in it, but he was one of them. But this was an excellent book.
About 1970, roughly.
At least 40, maybe 50 years ago. You can't find them anymore, but it's excellent.
Mothersill is one of the names that's related to Weeks. They didn't marry, so Mothersill is part of my family. But I knew that.
See, that's our genealogy support group. Joyce had a question, sorry.
I was just wondering, have you got copies of the old voters list? They're great to find people on, after when you can't get a hold of the census.
We don't, but a lot of them are on Ancestry.ca.
Yeah, I found them on Ancestry, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find right up to what I wanted.
Yeah, and like it's also public domain, right? I think we're only just approaching the 40s now that things are going into public domain. So anything after that.
I found some in the 60s.
Joyce had a question. It depends on what the resource is.
I found them, looking for somebody, for a girl, and you can't get covered, they live about 2 blocks from me.
Yeah, that's why it's always worth, as soon as there's, the New Year's has passed, to hop on to Ancestry and do a name search again, because you never know what's now been moved from being private to being public domain. It changes like every year a little bit further, right? So anything after that. Yeah.
Do you have the assessment rolls, the microfilm rolls of the township assessments for the area here in the library?
I don't know, that's a good question. Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
Durham County
Yeah.
assessment rolls survived, but I don't believe, there's only like 3 or 4 counties
Yeah.
that they survived for.
Yeah.
But if you have something that substitutes, it'd be nice to know.
I'll get back to you. Yes.
You mentioned some things being private and then becoming public.
Yeah.
What about things that are public or have been public? Have they also gone private and out of our realm?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, there's always the chance on Ancestry.ca of a living relative seeing something that's gone public domain, and you can make a complaint about that for sure.
Well, I meant whole databases, maybe the taxpayer paid for, and then all of a sudden the private company has it.
No, so that's the issue with the newspaper, right? Like, we can't get the copyright for it to then upload it online, so then we're sort of held at the mercy of the copyright.
Out of our realm.
Sometimes there is a bit of that.
Not that I can think of. I mean, there's always the chance on Ancestry.ca.
I keep photographing other people's
living relative
photos.
seeing something.
And I'm on Heritage Oshawa, and we had a big sticker thing up there. And on it, I commented to them, it wasn't really quite right. Whoever did it was
So
saying
that's
that
the
these
issue
were
with
copyright for Heritage Oshawa,
copyright for
which weren't. They were just ones, even Volkley's pictures, like the descriptions, as a package is copyrighted, but the individual images, often he never had them. So he photographed somebody else's original image. A lot of them, there's no copyright, or no legitimate copyright on the original image. If you copy the image plus this text under, yes, but the image itself, and it's really quite hard to tell which is which.
That's why it's best just to give credit, just in case, just cover your bases. Yep.
Some libraries charge for copies.
Yes.
You send an email, you charge.
I do not. We do not, I should say. No, it's free. That is pretty common practice. As far as I can see, it's going to be a free service, for sure. I mean, we're not losing any resources. It's not like I'm printing on paper or anything like that. Often it's just a scan, a little bit of my time, and it makes me and Eva better, local history librarians, and we interact with the resources as well, right? Because I could be looking for something for you, and then I see, oh, there was that. I was looking for, like 6 months ago for someone else, or here's an event in Oshawa, I didn't know what happened, and then they come and practice on wherever it is. So, as far as I can see, it's going to be a free service.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. We're not losing any resources. It's not like I'm printing on paper or anything like that.
Oh, thank you very
No
much.
problem. It makes
That's really
me and
interesting.
Eva-
I knew you had a lot of stuff there.
Where was that? I was looking for 6 months ago for someone else, or here's an event in Oshawa, I didn't know what happened.
Okay, so at this time we'll have a 10 to 15 minute break, and then we'll come back for Steve's update on the brick wall.
Steve's good.
Okay, I'm going to call on Steve to come and update us on the brick walls we discussed at the last meeting.
Well, for those of you who were here last month, we had a brick walls meeting and a few examples given out. And this is just a follow-up from what we did talk about at the last meeting. We've actually had some advances since then, thanks to the brick walls meeting. Our first case was for Don Tell. He isn't here tonight, but I've sent him a copy of this. He was interested in the parentage of Francis A. Hamilton. He knew he was born about 1835 in Clark Township, married in 1863 in the Durham County Marriage Register, died in Clark Township. According to the marriage record, he was the son of William Hamilton and Elizabeth. Given out. He was located in the 1861 census of Manvers Township, residing in Chicago's family, which you can see here on the page. He's a laborer, born in Upper Canada. Our first case was for Don Tell. That's Episcopalian Church, probably, BC. Could be English. He was interested in the parentage of Francis A. Hamilton. Updated about 1835 in Clark Township. Strictly by coincidence, I was helping Deb with the inventory for year end, and I was counting the pages of cemeteries while she was entering them into the computer. And up comes the Coulter Hamilton Cemetery. And I glanced down at it as I was going, and jumps right out of the page, a number of Elizabeth Hamilton, deceased April 24th, 1838, aged 40 years, which makes her born about 1798, consort of William A. Hamilton. This is in Clark Township, so where the other Francis was born, Clark Township. So William and Elizabeth definitely matches the information that he had on Francis. And now he has a date and confirming the location. Also notice the consort of William A. Hamilton. So instead of just William, we have William A., which is kind of important. Each 40 years. Observations? Clark Township probably is Francis's birth date. She's buried there 13 years later or so. They were likely residents of that township, and the father was still alive in April of 1838 because she was the consort of, not the relict, but the consort. That means the husband is still alive. So that's something to watch for. Unfortunately, most of the Clark Township for 1851-52 is missing. We could not find him anywhere in Durham County, and he was not spotted in the 1861, which is available. So he may have probably died by then. She's buried there. However, in 1861, there was William Alexander, William A. age 11, born Canada West, son of John Hamilton. He's born in Ireland. Margaret, born in Ireland, and they're also in Banbridge Township, where Francis A. was. Unfortunately, I did a search of the public known trees and ancestry, and they figured that John Hamilton was born in 1818 in County Cavan, Ireland, son of William Hamilton, and Bessie Hall. Now you'll notice they have William Hamilton. They figure he died in County Cavan, Ireland in the 1830s. If it's the same family, that is an error. But Bessie Hall, that matches. Elizabeth, Bessie, died in Banbridge Township. We have an monument in Clark Township that matches this. So that is definitely worth following up on. We suggest they do the early census and assessment rolls for Clark and Banbridge Township for the area. So we actually own those. Our branch owns them, and they're kept in the Whitby Public Libraries. You can through them. Clark Township probably starts 1801 or so, and goes up. They go up to the 1850s. So they also would be worthwhile checking for wills. I pulled a couple out of an index I have at home. There's a John Hamilton will 1858 and Robert Hamilton in 1837 for Northumberland and Durham. That's as low as it breaks it down. They'd be worth going after. Land records, especially after you probably get a location from the census and accessory records, then go into land records for transactions, and there could be wills attached to the land as well. William may have left a will, but it may not be in any of the indexes because it's still on land records. It'd be worthwhile checking the Newcastle District Marriage Registers. If you've got two sons from William and Elizabeth, William and Bessie, whatever you want to call her, there may be others. So check those, check the witnesses to the wills, check locations, and go through any of the church records we have in our collection. We have quite a few for that area. We're trying out, and also collect or contact those working with John Hamilton. Compare notes, see what they've done. I think he's going to have some good clues coming up there. So that's our first find for John Temple. You've got two sons from William and case number 2, Elizabeth Proctor. We knew she was born about 1835 in England, died 1876 in Ontario, daughter of William Proctor. Go through any of the church records and Mason collection. She only had one sibling, Thomas, born about 1838 in New York. Had a possible ship's record for her, which listed Anne and Eliza, arriving in New York from England on the wall in 1837. That's the most promising entry in the IGI for baptism was for Elizabeth, daughter of William and Anne Proctor, December 1835 in Messingham, Lincolnshire. It's not confirmed, but that was the best guess we had. For 30 years, we were looking for a marriage of William to Anne Mason to kind of confirm where the location was. A possible ship's record for her. Okay. Check for Lincolnshire online parish clerks project. It's not part of the parish clerks project, but they do have something called freereg.org.uk instead. Wonderful site, and Lincolnshire is well represented on it. There are other counties as well. You just have to see what's there. As always, it's a work in progress. Not everything's there, but Messingham is. Located transcription of the marriage of William Proctor to Anne Mason, 1st of June 1835 in Messingham. Like I said, looking for that marriage for 30 years to confirm I had the right place. So you can actually see a little tiny window of this original marriage record and others on something called linkstothe.past.com. They do sell the actual full-size transcriptions, but you can make sure it's the right one because you can zoom in on a little thing, a little corner, bring it up, and find out and get all the information ahead of time and make sure it's the right one. You don't have to buy it if you don't want to. It's free to look at. I guess they have it. So that's for 30 years. There's two excellent websites if you're looking for Lincolnshire records. So I entered this information at the Family Tree Registry. I was pretty sure that Messingham was the right person. I decided to add the ship's passenger list information. Well, but you can make sure it's the right. I forgot it was from the Castle Garden website index. Then I was looking on Ancestry. And darn if I didn't find it on Ancestry. Find out and get all the information ahead of time. In place of just England or whatever for place of birth, which they normally ask, which is all they ask for. I got actual birthplaces on the websites. If you're looking for birthplace for Anne, read something like Newfold or Newbold, something along that line. Pretty sure Messingham was birthplace for Eliza, read Messingham. Guess what? I've got the right passenger list for the right couple. So that was a bonus. There's the ship's list right there. You can see Anne Proctor, age 23. The wife is in the wrong column. She should be over one notch there. You can see Newfold or whatever that is. We think it's Newfold or whatever from place of birth. I'll explain a little later. And that's their destination, Canada. This is a New York passenger list. And then Eliza, one child. So that's actually Messingham. When you look at the record closely and other records on the same page, that's one of the old-fashioned double S's, M-E-S-S, and two hams for the clear. They were heading for Canada. So, couldn't find Newbold anywhere in England, so I joined the Lincolnshire mailing list. Is anybody here on the Lincolnshire mailing list? Oh, really luck. Because I've taken it over. I got a lot of helpful suggestions, including that it's probably a variant of Newball, Hamlet, in Stainton by Langworth Parish, Lincolnshire. That's all I asked, was where is Newball? I can't find it. What sounds like that you might recognize? That's all I asked. Okay, to January 26th, I've had 151 replies, and it'll be over 200 now. Most of them are a couple called Bart and Edie, and one, she's in Tasmania, and I think he's in England. But they revised the original period, and they've been trying to find owners in all the records. And we've had a lot of success, but we still haven't confirmed. But like I say, we've taken over the Lincolnshire list. It's pretty bad. I'm sure a lot of people are cursing us like that. You might curse me or Charlotte, but it's been a wonderful trip, and he's more or less narrow than that. So it was really worthwhile starting all this and going back to revisiting the information that's been partly by accident because I looked on Ancestry for the mail or for the ship's list instead of going back and entering in the information from Castle Garden. Once I got the original information, I have birth locations. So now I have something concrete to work with. Like I say, there's Lincolnshire, and that's Stainton by Langworth, kind of in the middle there. You can see Messingham is up just above Riel there. It would be for Riel and Lincolnshire. And you can see on the right-hand side.
Look at what they put under the names, other places.
New Bell, Newball, and Newball.
So those are other names of that parish.
And that ties in. That's, well, I think it's the different hamlets in there and things like that. And certainly it comes up with Newbold, and that's better than even they were coming up with. So there is likely my Newbold, and down in Stainton, which is a little ways. I think it's something like 30 miles or something from Messingham.
I tried to do a radius search. I think it's about 25 miles.
25 miles. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting map. I didn't know that I hadn't gone into this before. This is from Family Search. And when you brought that up, I went looking. So I was like, that's the different hamlets in there. It helps support.
English parishes use maps.familysearch.org. I'm not even sure you can get to it from the front.
Yeah, you could, because I didn't live in front of
the main
page. But
page.
it wasn't real clear yet, which I had to go around. I think it's something like 30 miles or something. It's very
There's
interesting.
hidden nuggets in the family search website that aren't that easy to find.
No.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so that's-
There's Messingham,
Yeah, that's about 25 miles.
Search.
So number one is Messingham, and then the purple down in the bottom right is Staples. That's the distance between those two parishes.
Not that far, but it'd be a couple days journey probably for them to do. It wasn't real clear yet, which I had to go around. So, Newbold, still guesswork, but it's likely Newbold. Unfortunately, I can't get my hands on the baptisms for after 1812 to 1830s at the moment. They're not up there yet on either website. So, I can't find her actual baptism.
Check the family search catalog, see if you can order
Well,
a
I probably,
microfilm.
I actually can. What's microfilm?
You know that old stuff we used to use?
But there is a family of Thomas and Elizabeth Mason, whose daughter Anne was baptized in 1811, and then there's a 4-year gap between her and the next child. And in this family, they had a lot of kids die young, and they named the next kid the same name. So it's quite possible she belongs to this, because Thomas and Elizabeth are the names of the 2 children of William and Anne Proctor. And so it could be they used those names. They also had a son, William Mason, who was married in Messingham, moved to New York in the early 1830s, and then moved to Canada in the later 1830s. Now, William Proctor and Anne Mason did the same thing. A little bit later, they moved to New York and then up to Canada at the same time as this William Mason did. And William settled in Scarborough Town. So it could be a brother and a sister located to a township apart in Canada after moving up from New York together. It's still all there at the moment, but it looks very promising. Unfortunately, as I say, I haven't got my hands on the records yet. And now I know what to look for after 30 years. So the brick wall program last month worked. For Don, for me, get your notes in for the next one. When we have another one, as it just may come. I just put this up just as conclusion. It never hurts to revisit your information, see what you're missing, see what new records have come to light since you last did it. And also having a second pair of eyes looking at it. Find something you've missed. Unfortunately, as I say, I haven't got my hands on the records.
Sometimes you just have to know the right person, ask them the right questions.
For the next one. We have another one. I just put this up just as conclusion. It never hurts to revisit your information, see what you're missing, see what new records have come to light since you last did it.
Can I ask a question about English parishes?
Yes.
If they say somebody on a marriage license was married in the parish church, and they name the parish, can we assume that there's only one church they're talking about?
Yes, it's one parish per Anglican church. So these are the Anglican Church, Church of England parishes that also served a governmental civic up until 1837. 1837 they started the civil registration where the government actually took birth, marriage, and death instead of the christenings, marriages, and burials. But before that, the parish registers of the Anglican Church were the governmental records too. They had a civil purpose as well as a religious purpose. So when they say the parish church, there is only, it's Anglican, and there's only one in each parish. A governmental
They sometimes
civic.
have little chapels as well.
Yeah.
Most times the marriages occur in the main church, but baptisms
1837.
and burials do not.
Yeah, but mostly those records of the little chapels would come in the main registers. Yeah.
burials.
Nancy, in England, you're referring to the Anglican Church.
Yes.
Were there not some records maintained in the Roman Catholic?
Oh, yes, but the Anglican Church was the established church. Now, they tried to do that here in Canada and it didn't work. We actually ended up with our religions all having pretty good freedom, eventually. But in England of that time and day, you could be Methodist, you could be Roman Catholic, but you had to make sure, if you wanted your kids to inherit, that your marriage was done in the English church. Okay, yes, it was the established church of the government. Oh, yes, but the Anglican Church
Do
was
the other
the
churches
established.
keep records as well?
They try to help here in Canada. If you're lucky and they survived, and you're better off with the hierarchical church, the ones that, you know, they report up to a bishop or a synod or something like that. If it was a little independent something or other, you know, would the records survive? Who knows? The Methodists were bad at keeping records, even though it wasn't totally, you know, hierarchical system. Established church of the government. Finding them? Family search catalog and see if they microfilm them.
So did some people get married twice then?
If you're lucky and they survive. It's possible. I have not actually studied that. And so I'm looking for, like, both a Methodist and
Well, it would either have to be that, or they would have to be having, the Anglican Church would have to be having a lot of non-Anglicans welcomed in for weddings.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And there's certain time period restriction on that too. And then things did, religious finding did kind of open up and become better. But I mean, even in early Upper Canada, the Anglicans were the only ones who could marry. And then they allowed the Quakers and the Roman Catholics kind of to come into that. And then eventually, you know, the Methodists, because they didn't have enough Anglican churches or priests, they finally did let the traveling Methodist preachers marry. Yeah. And that sort of that established church up here too. And then things did, religious finding that kind of opened up and become better. Oh gosh, we're right up. But I mean, even in early Upper Canada, the Anglicans were the only ones who could marry. And then they allowed the Quakers and the Roman Catholics kind of to come into that. And then eventually, you know, the Methodists, because they didn't have Anglican churches or priests, they finally did let not here traveling. Sheila has treasures report for us, and Mary. And that sort of that established church restriction here. And then things did religious finding that kind of. Oh gosh, we're right up. But I mean, even in early Canada.
Okay, so for the month of January, our balance is now $14,618.90. We did have a GIC that came due for $5,294, and that's going to be reinvested this week. And we had $2,034 in donations and $1,573 in membership fees. Other than that, the regular. So for the month of January, that's it. Balance is now $14,000.
Yes, we always sound like we got a lot of money in January, because that's when the fees, membership fees come in. But then we got to live on it the whole year. Upcoming meetings. We have purchased a webinar that came from Thomas McKenzie and Lisa Alzo, called Tame Your Inner Pack Rat. I have watched it. It's an excellent webinar on organization of both of your thinking and your digital and your paper materials. And it's quite a good webinar. I think we'll be showing that at our next meeting. Membership fees come in, but then we got to live on it all year. I asked and I was denied permission to stream it out live. So we will not be recording that part of our meeting, but we will do the announcement part. Put that on the YouTube channel. Called Tame Your Inner Pack Rat. I have upcoming meetings. We had a wonderful DNA inaugural session this past month. And we learned more about the family tree DNA website than we ever knew before. Karen did a lovely tour of the dashboard on the family tree DNA website. Showed us all the things we didn't realize were there. It was great. So everybody's welcome to come out. So 7:30 on the Wednesday, February 17th. So we said that we're going to meet the third Wednesday of the month. And Anne has basically told me her website is 23andMe, which is one of the major database programs, or DNA testing. I have tested with Ancestry, so we're going to demonstrate those two dashboards for our next meeting. It's very, very informal. Showed us all the things we didn't realize were there. It's more a discussion group, I guess. So everybody's welcome to come out, but we're learning a lot from you. 7:30 on the Wednesday, February 17th. So we said that we're going to meet the third Wednesday. Well, I can point you to our website. Anne has basically durham.ogs.on.ca, and there's a lovely map on there that's going to be held at our office, which is on the south end of the Oshawa Airport. And I have Rawson Road as a site on Stevens. We're going to demonstrate basically to the end of the road. And there we go. It's we're in the base of the nav camp. Discussion group. Everybody's going to come out, but we're learning a lot. We haven't really said, but I'd say no. Anybody not visit. We're going to meet Thursday. Well, join our discussion and our website. We did that. Durham.ogs.on.ca. And we're at 9:30-ish, so I think we don't have time for our questions.